Here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Oh, it's bad. It's bad, and it's only going to get worse for Donald and company. Oh, it is bad. Let's start there. It's bad. Anybody else having this kind of stuff, you wouldn't be heard from again for, a long time. Now, remember the name Reality Winner? She took one document, one classified document, was sentenced to 63 months in jail, served 44 of those months. Trump had more than 300, more than 700 pages of documents clearly marked. And what we found, and again, I think I'm going back to my original position, which was this is just for vanity. Just, hey, I look what I got, because we were finding out that evidently it was just all intermingled, highly classified things, just unfolded, intermixed with other records, just it's kind of like a crackhead leaving the house when the police are knocking at the door. That's kind of what I'm guessing is our classified documents look like. Just a bunch of stuff just thrown in there. Now we find out that in the affidavit, they believe they had probable cause. That additional documents that contain classified NDI and or that are presidential records subject to record retention, that they're on the premises. They say that there is also probable cause to believe that evidence of obstruction will be trying to hide it. I knew he shouldn't have had it. Tried to hide it. Because again, this is the part that I find just bizarre. There have been months of, hey, give us our stuff back. Hey, those are our records. It's the law. You have to return them. There have been months of this. And no, above the law. I can shoot someone down Fifth Avenue and not lose a vote. Yeah, maybe not. But the Department of Justice and the FBI, not the average voter. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. If you want to weigh in, is this a big deal? I kind of think it is when you've got a president who has, as we now find out, it was rumored before, they believed that it's in the affidavit that they, if it's in here, they knew he had it. Material included the highest national security restrictions with foreign governments to protect clandestine human sources employed by intelligence communities to collect information around the world. Our spies, the people that, we've kind of positioned around the world, that stuff. I mean, this is a big deal that this stuff is just laying around Mar-a-Lago. And you go, well, what's the big deal? It's in his house. No, it's a golf club where, I don't know, people can just come in, for instance, Russian-speaking immigrants, like the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette today, I believe, or Pittsburgh Post-Gazette today, reported that this Ayana Yashutskin, I guess that's how you're going to pronounce that, she posed as Anna de Rothschild, the member of the European, elite, the banking, folks. Got into the Mar-a-Lago place and was part of Trump's entourage. And there's part of me that goes, I can see how this plays out. Pretty Russian woman comes in, good looking Russian woman. Hey, I got some secrets. Hey, you want to see my toys? You can see how this goes. And you go, how does this happen? It's who this guy has always been. The fact that we let him anywhere near the Oval Office, even on a visit, is still beyond me. And what's been more entertaining and more disturbing, because I see both sides of the entertainment value of how stupid some can be and how dangerously stupid we can be. The litany of lies of justifying this guy having this stuff. oh, hey, he didn't have anything. There's nothing there. Don't know what you're talking about. Turns out he's got stuff. Oh, he declassified everything. Declassified it all. He had his Sharpie right there. Colored all over it. Scratched it out. In fact, Biden had the perfect response for that today. Because he was asked about it. And he said, look, I've declassified everything in the world. I'm president. Come on. This is one of those, come on, man. Come on, man. Wake up. This is one of those moments. And my other favorite one just came out here recently is he didn't pack anything. This was someone else's fault. Because this is what the Trumpster does. He's blaming the General Services Administration. And they have now come out with a statement saying they had no role in packing the boxes. So it got me wondering, what else is in there? Because they believe there's more stuff there. They believe there's more classified documents somewhere. They believe that, so my mind goes to this place. Because, one of my other favorite stories in the litany of lies department has been people telling me that, Donald Trump's he's gone deep cover. Kind of like Serpico. If you remember that guy from the 70s, that movie in the 70s, he's gonna Sherlock Holmes the deep state. He's gonna go after the cover up. I mean, he's gonna uncover. He's not gonna cover up. He's gonna uncover uncover all of the Russia stuff. He's gonna break it wide open. And also, the Q folks have to chime in. So while he's uncovering the Russia hoax, that was also tied to a pedophile ring somewhere. Yeah. That's the story that some have been telling me, that this is really just him, the deep state trying to protect themselves. And I'm going, if that's the case, you'd think he would have better security than just, I don't know, laying around with some magazines? Just kind of a thought. Now, I do have some questions on what it is, and I hope we someday get to find out. I don't know that we will. For instance, is the P-tape in there? I mean, is this something that he snatched? I don't know. Did he take the stuff, regarding all of the named folks in the Mueller report? It kind of makes you wonder. The Carter Page stuff, the phone calls with Mike Flynn, the numerous phone calls with Republicans and I don't know, foreign contacts, maybe from a certain country that's invading another country right now, I don't know, some Russian oligarchs, some potential Russian assets. I don't know, just asking questions. Could it be in here? Could it be the Christopher Steele stuff? Could he be going deep state? Or could it be the cover-up that I believe it? We can't have this stuff as part of the actual record. Because then we'll realize that all of the contact and the coordination that was going on between the Trump campaign in 2015 and 16 and the Russian troll farms and the Russian propaganda machine actually did happen. And that information was actually shared, kind of like Paul Manafort let out of the bag the other day. But Paul was, hey, don't worry, it wasn't political. No, this was about business. We were going to do business with each other. Yeah, they've done business all right. The business of screwing over this country in an enormously profitable fashion for them. Now, I do find it interesting that attorney Andrew Weissman has kind of got a contest going, looking for a catchy name for the scandal. Because we don't really have one yet. Because, you go back to the Clinton era, there were tons of them. Everything was a gate, travel gate, all that stuff. Is this Boxgate? Is this part of that? Hot Boxgate. Could be that too. DocuGate, something like that. I'm curious. Anybody got thoughts on what this scandal will be named? Someone mentioned Cheeto-gate, which got me thinking, will all the documents that he touched have like orange smudges on it, like when you eat the Cheetos? Just kind of got me thinking. Someone else threw out is orange is the new black and white stripe jumpsuit. that's possibly a good one too. So I'm curious if you've got thoughts. I want to hear it. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com, or give us a call, 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. But here's the thing. This is the part. I've got a bunch of people going, well, this is where Robert Mueller's got to arrest him now. And my first thought is, how has he not been arrested yet? But there's part of me that goes, I'm actually okay with Merrick Garland taking his good old sweet time. I'm actually okay with him, crossing every T, dotting every I, making an airtight case, kind of, squeezing in because, it's the waiting. I believe it was Tom Petty who said it's the waiting. That's the hardest part. And if you're Trump, sitting in your golden palace, you got to wonder if the next knock at the door is going to be the FBI. You got to wonder if that's coming. The other part that you got to wonder about, and what we have found out in this, what we've found out is, how is it that the FBI did get all this information? Because evidently, lots of specific knowledge kind of stuff. Lots of stuff that the DOJ has revealed. There are a significant number of civilian witnesses who cooperated. And, the fact that, private areas of the Golden Palace that were revealed. For instance, this Pine Hall, which is evidently, some, like a foyer to Trump's residence from the club, to his residence. Many people know that. The FBI had really close knowledge of what was going on. So that's somebody who really had to know. Could it be Ivanka? Who ratted Donald out? Could it be the daughter he wanted to date? Could it be Jared? Because Jared already got his $2 billion from the Saudis. He's already flush with cash. Or could it be Melania just wanting to get him out of the Golden Palace? Or more likely, could it have just been the Secret Service doing their freaking jobs? Either way, he's got to be looking over his shoulder wondering, who's going to rat me out next? And I think that's probably a little worse than picking up trash on the side of the highway. Yeah, I think so. Let's go to the phones. Got Alice on one. Alice, how are we doing today?
We're doing. I actually prefer espionage escapades as a name for this scandal, if you want to call it that. Something different. Let's just get out of the 90s. This is, after all, the 21st century. But I'll tell you what I love. I love the fact that all these potential crimes and the Republican Party, who assures us, just how patriotic they are and waving the flag, don't seem to see there's much of a problem with the possibility that, you got little spies coming in and this all this other nonsense going on, but doesn't seem to bother them one bit. And they're just coming up with all kind of excuses, It was planted there, or he has the power to declassify, even though he's not president anymore. I guess it's one of those, grandfathered in things that, once you're president, you can just turn around, and even though it's 50 years later, you can say, it's declassified, wave your little magic wand.
Yeah. I got the Sharpie. My favorite one is he signed the executive order and left it in the bottom drawer. Kind of like the letter to the next president. It's kind of like a get out of jail free card that he left himself.
Oh, yeah. It's just all these excuses. And you're right. I'm watching and listening to all these Trump supporters and the Republicans and the evangelicals just twisting themselves into little pretzels, coming up with, all those excuses, and I had sent you the story and the link to that guy from the Federalist Society that claiming that, they were discussing whether or not a president could think that he declassified something, and even though he didn't speak it out loud or tell it to anyone, it may be that it was declassified just by him thinking it. I thought, okay, this sounds like some sort of weird quantum physics thing, but, I guess any port to storm when you're looking for an excuse.
Yep. any justification to get your guy out of it. And because I've had people go, what if Obama would have done that? I go, well, Obama didn't do it. So this is an exercise in futility. And if he had done it, if we have to play your game, he should have been locked up. But he was smart enough not to do that. So let's not even play.
Oh, I know. Well, they got to drag all that stuff out of the closet. And I'm like, could you come up with a new conspiracy theory?
Yeah.
My husband said, well, I'm just waiting for him to throw in the aliens again or the space lasers. Who knows? Have a good evening.
Thanks, Alice. But what did come up today, oddly enough, and interestingly enough, another Hunter Biden story. That's right, more Hunter Biden. Just when you need a good distraction, you got to pull out the old faithful Hunter Biden. We'll take a quick break right back after this. Stick around. If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our labor history in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. Generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. So inflation fell in July. A little bit. A good sign because gas prices fell. That's going to be helpful. Nobody running around saying, hey, Joe Biden did that. And I normally don't give presidents credit or blame for this kind of stuff. But in this case, he kind of did. He brought gas prices down. Where are the stickers now? Now, what's going to be fun, what's going to be entertaining over the next couple of days is how the right is going to use the student loan money forgiveness as a divisive issue. It's coming. Get ready for it. In fact, this American Action Network, good American-sounding group, American Action Network, a conservative advocacy group, as they're called, they are going to come out with a new ad. Going to spend several $1 million, during upcoming college football and Major League Baseball games to attack the debt forgiveness by having a actress who plays a waitress, an actor who plays a mechanic, and an actor who plays a landscaper talk about having to work extra shifts and so that they can help theater majors and business majors get out of debt. And again, playing on that class war. And now look, while I'm in favor of dealing with the student loan debt crisis, and I'm fully aware of how the right is going to use this as a tool to divide the working class because of that kind of envy. Well, I'm not getting anything. What about me? They're going to play on that in spades. Because look, I've already got people telling me, well, people shouldn't be having to pay for the degrees of their bosses. And look, I don't totally disagree, and I understand how that could play. I do. But at the end of the day, I look at, all of us have kids, and all of us have friends and family members who are working class people who are saddled deeply with debt because of a massive redistribution scheme that has happened over the last 40 years. And while these ads are going to really lay on the you work hard and you're going to pay for them, they're going to, and you may buy it. The reality is we need to be talking about the flip side of this, which is how do we return to a sane, rational tax code that invests in our children, invests in our future, invests in our country, and, I don't know, does the things that our grandparents' generation did, where most of us look back to and go, wow, that's when America was great. When we fought our wars and we paid for it, and we had health care for people, and we had the best education in the world and the best infrastructure in the world. We were the envy. Oh, no, but Rick, no one else had anything either. No one had anything. And I'm not quite sure how that argument plays. What we had was a system in place where the folks who had the biggest shoulders, the deepest pockets, let's use that one, contributed the most to society to ensure that there was some opportunity. And they understood that was part of the cost of admission into society. But now we're a completely different society. Now it's hooray for me and the hell with everybody else. Mine, like a 2-year-old in the cereal aisle, kicking and screaming because mom said no. This is where we are, and they're playing on that fear and that anger and that divisiveness. I work 2 jobs and I'm paying for this. How about we change that narrative to say, you're working 2 jobs? You're digging those holes for doing the landscaping work. You're working on cars, 15 hours a day, and you still can't make ends meet because we've encouraged mass greed on Wall Street and in the corporate boardrooms. And we've got a tax code that says, no, take it all. Here, have more. In fact, you don't have to pay any tax. In fact, we'll give you more. In fact, there were 55 companies 2 years ago who paid 0 corporate taxes. In fact, many of those, we paid them. So those waitresses and those mechanics and those landscapers who are busting their behinds, the focus should be on, hey, how do we return these jobs to living wage jobs, the kind of jobs where 40 hours in a week supports a family, to where if you work hard, you play by the rules, you actually do get ahead. How do we give those workers a voice in the job to make their lives better instead of saying, no, we're going to make our kids' lives worse? But this is what the right is trying to do, because they're really trying to make the Democratic Party the party of the elites. And this is where Democrats had better wake the blank up, because you're losing the working class. This is where you've got to come out strongly in support of working people with policies that are going to help working families. Yeah, this is going to help with the college educated. This is going to help with working class families who have kids in college, relatives. I've got a young relative who, she's $100,000 in debt, $100,000 in debt. Sadly, this plan isn't going to help her much because most of those loans are outside of government loans. Most of those are private loans at 9-11% interest, which is insane. Because what we've done, we've got the wealthiest wealth class in the history of civilization. And how did we get there? We got there by defunding our education systems from top to bottom. We got there by handing more to corporate America and privatizing the commons. The question is, when are we going to wake up and stop being divided by nonsense videos by folks called the American Action Network? Kind of makes you wonder. Do they think we're stupid or do they know? How about we prove them wrong and not fall for it? Let them waste their money and vote Republicans out in November. Because remember, as I always say, Republicans hate working people. Pass it on. Quick break. Right back. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 2012. That was the day a release of flammable vapor led to a fire at the Chevron refinery in Richmond, California. A level 3 community warning system alert was issued for the cities of Richmond, San Paulo, and North Richmond. Toxic black smoke could be seen for miles while the fire burned for hours. 19 workers were nearly incinerated trying to escape the fire. More than 15,000 area residents sought medical treatment for chest pains, breathing problems, headaches, and sore throats. The Chemical Safety Board found that the release was caused by a leaking pipe that eventually ruptured. The pipe, made of carbon steel, suffered sulfidic corrosion. The Chemical Safety Board noted that for 40 years, the refinery industry had known that carbon steel corrodes at a much faster rate than higher chromium content steel pipe. The pipe in question had no shutoff valve to isolate the leak. In its final report, the Chemical Safety Board issued a number of findings. They found that Chevron knew of the corrosion but did nothing to prevent it. As well, Chevron not only failed to perform 100% component inspections, but it also rejected earlier recommendations to inspect and replace the pipe that would eventually fail. When it came to emergency response, Chevron failed to identify and communicate process controls or damage mechanisms in the incident command structure. They also had no leak response guidance or formal protocol to determine how to handle a process leak. The Chemical Safety Board found the safety culture lacking. Workers were reluctant to use their stop work authority and were often encouraged to continue operations despite hazardous conditions. The Chemical Safety Board issued a number of recommendations, including more stringent regulatory enforcement. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
The Old Home Place is a classic theme of Americana, expressed in everything from Norman Rockwell paintings to Woody Guthrie's powerful folk lament, Ain't Got No Home in This World Anymore. But for a heart-rending modern-day version of the emotional pull of home, you can't beat the poignant wail of a new song entitled The Low-Down Down Home Atherton Rich Man Blues. Warning, you might need a box of tissues to get through this sad saga. Atherton, California is a small town of some 7,500 souls who face a dreadful housing crisis. Unlike most situations, though, they are alarmed by a looming threat of too much housing. It seems that a recent California law requires cities to provide some affordable multifamily housing to help cope with a growing statewide shortage of homes, meaning Atherton needs to put in about 350 townhouse units as its share. Townhouses shriek the locals. This can't be. Unrich people live in townhouses. You see, Atherton is a precious enclave in the heart of the Silicon Valley, where only tech billionaires are allowed. The price of their mansions averages $8 million, with each one secluded on at least an acre of land. So, townhouse people? No way! As one affordable housing advocate put it, Atherton talks about multifamily housing as if it were a Martian invasion. In a letter to the city council, the multi-billionaire Andreessen family wailed that allowing more than one residence per acre, quote, will massively decrease our home values and quality of life. I'm sure you weep for them, so grab a tissue. Yet some Athertonians are at least trying to find solutions. One suggests that all of the residents' swimming pool cabanas should count toward the town's affordable housing requirements. This is Jim Hightower saying, if that won't make you cry, nothing will.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
Some really good news coming out of California. And look, you know, this is, as I've been saying, they're going to try and divide. They're going to try and conquer. Wait for it, because it's coming. But out in California, they're doing something pretty exciting, something that I've thought we've needed to do for a long time. The idea of sectorial bargaining, the idea of by industries. As someone who came out of the trucking industry, you know, I worked under the National Master Freight Agreement for years, which covered, you know, in the LTL market, the vast majority of the less than truckload trucking market when I started. And back then, when I started in the 80s, it was 85% unionized. And we raised conditions. That was a family sustaining job with the best healthcare benefits, with retirement security. It was the gold standard of middle-class employment. Sadly, over the years, what's happened to that industry is they've destroyed it. We're down to about 10% unionization in the LTL market, and wages and benefits and conditions have gotten worse. But what you learn is when you can take an industry and move it forward, that's better. So what we see in California, they are pushing forward on Assembly Bill 257. AB 257 is the Fast Recovery Act Fast Food Accountability and Standards Recovery Act. And what this would do is give some 550,000 fast food workers the ability to have better wages, hours, and conditions. And here to share some thoughts on what this will do and what the chances of next week it perhaps passing are. I've asked Sandro Flores to come talk with us. He's a Carl's Jr. worker. He's also one of the union leaders with the Fight for 15 and a union campaign. Sandro, thanks for taking time for us.
Hello, thank you so much for having me here.
So give me a little thought on what this AB 257 is.
AB 257, it pretty much creates a union. It will create a committee that will help level the playing field so that us, the workers, can have a voice. Us, the workers, can address the problems that we know more intimately than no one else, and in turn create changes.
And how would it do this? What would be the mechanism? What does this bill do that is outside of what we do currently?
Primarily, what it's going to do is going to create a centralized committee that is going to incorporate the workers into the committee, and this committee will be able to address most of the problems like wage theft, and in turn actually address and make plans for it.
Now, people say that, Sandro, that, what you do in the fast food industry, those are just jobs for pimply-faced teenagers. They're transition jobs. They're not career jobs. How do you respond to that?
I respond to that that's simply not correct, because if you go to most of the fast food restaurants, 80% of the workers that are there, the backbone, it's people who have dedicated their whole life into it. Fast food restaurant is a dignified job that if you make it your career, you can live out of there. The problem is that we don't have a livable wage. And the problem is that you have a lot of people who are the head of the family working in this industry. The problem is that, yes, they hire a lot of new workers who are 15, but that in turn creates a turnover that it's over and over. And to be training those people is just not the case.
Yeah, and to be honest, during the day while kids are in school, who's working at those jobs?
Who opens a business?
Now, overwhelmingly, the number of women and minorities and people of color, those are the folks who dominate these jobs.
Exactly.
When you look at this and you say, is this structural? Is this something that in this country is normal? I'm curious your thoughts.
My thoughts is that, as being immigrants or as being the first generation, the opportunities, there are not many. And since we within the what so-called ghettos or so-called lower income communities, there is a boom of fast food restaurants, then there's an opportunity of having a work there. So since it's close to your environment, you can pursue those jobs. So then if you ask a family member or a head of the family, if you're going to go multiple miles to go look for a job or work at the McDonald's or it's right here the corner, you're going to choose that because it's more available.
Right. Now, as I've been reading, and look, I've talked to fast food workers for years, as the Fight for 15 campaign has been going on, Fight for 15 and a union, that union part for me has always been the most important part of this. This seems to be a way to get people representation across the whole industry and not have these kind of individual battles and fights that seem in this country seem to take way too long. There's an opportunity here to make lives better almost immediately. So, what do you think the chances are next week of the Senate in California deciding that this moves forward?
As a person that went to Sacramento and pushed for this bill and actually went to the senators and did a little bit of lobbying, I can tell you that the mood and the environment seems to be correct. It seems to be ripe for a change. And I hope that the Congress people can actually do something about it and they will actually address it. The Councilman, sorry.
Now, what are the chances? We just saw today that Governor Newsom said that he can't support the farm workers bill as it is right now. They're still negotiating on that. That is something separate. What are the chances that this passes the Senate, because it already passed the General Assembly there? What are the chances are that this gets to the governor's desk and he can't support this? Any chance? Do you have any indication that he'll sign it once it gets to his desk?
Once he gets to his desk, it's up to him to decide if he's going to stand with the workers or he's going to stand with the industry. And you know what? As being Los Angeles and being part of it, where we're mostly workers, he has to stand with us. So the climate seems to be right for him to say yes.
Yeah, there you go. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show. We're with Sandro Flores. He is a Carl's Jr. worker out in California, also one of the union leaders with the Fight for 15 and a union campaign. If you want to check out their website, fastfoodjusticeahora.com is the website. We'll get links out on social media how you can take a look at this. Now, again, I go back to this frame. A lot of people go, these are just teenage jobs. It's the first job you learn something. But these are tough jobs. I mean, we hear people saying you got to work hard, you got to do all. These are hard work jobs for low pay. I want to return to the days, Sandro, where if you worked hard, you played by the rules, you got ahead. And it sounds to me like this is a pathway to getting to that get ahead part.
Yeah, honestly, many of us, when we get to this country, we are made to believe that if you put the work into it, you will get the reward. But sadly, in my case, even working 2 jobs at the same time and trying, like having my 4 hours when I was actually getting my 4 hours and everything, it wasn't enough to make the ends meet. You know, your promise, and even with the pandemic, when it happened and we were actually giving more hours because there was not enough people, we were made believe that we were essential workers. But at the end of the day, with everything that happened, you feel like more like a disposable worker because not even the wages that you're given are enough to sustain basic living.
Let me ask you about that because, I've talked to a lot of workers who came out of the pandemic, feeling that, that patriotism, that they were essential, they were frontline heroes. You heard all the rhetoric and all the platitudes that they threw out. No real wages, no real better, making your life better, but pats on the back, that's gone, isn't it?
That's really gone. Honestly, even during the pandemic, the sad reality is that they were not even providing with the adequate protection. They were not even providing with adequate information on people how to protect themselves, not to touch your faces, how to disinfect properly. These were protocols that were not actually taught correctly, and many of these workers paid with their lives. Some of them got disabled because of COVID, and now who is going to pay for them?
So let me ask you some of the difficult questions, because I've got conservative listeners who are losing their mind right now going, what? We're going to pay fast food workers more? I can't pay another nickel for a hamburger. That's just unreasonable. In other countries, fast food workers make living wages with health care benefits, with predictable schedules, with retirement, with all kinds of things that working class people around the world almost take for granted, except here in this country. Would it destroy the fast food industry to treat you guys with dignity and respect?
No, honestly, I feel that most of the campaigns that they're against AB 257, they say that if we increase the wages, it's going to increase the prices. But we forget that we live in an inflation era where regardless of what we do, the prices are going to go up. And we forget that we live within an economy and a democracy that in turn, if you make a change into it, it will self-level itself. Yeah, maybe the prices will go higher, but, in turn, we can, as a society, be proud that there's a livable wage and that we're tackling more of the problems. Because here in California, homelessness is a big problem that, in turn, some of the fast food workers have to face because sometimes they're not able to make ends meet. So it all goes hand by hand.
I'm glad you brought that up because, we used to do a lot of work with the homeless shelter here locally, and I was amazed at the number of people who worked in the fast food restaurants in the local area here who were living in the homeless shelter, taking their baths in a sink and then going to work, a shift and maybe 2 at another fast food place, and then going back to the homeless shelter because they didn't make enough money to actually afford to live in a home. I was shocked by it.
In addition to that, put the wage theft. You have so many workers who they're stealing from their wages, who they're stealing their breaks, who they tell them, you know what, by next paycheck you have it. By next paycheck you have it. And these are workers like myself that sometimes we're living paycheck to paycheck. So what happens when you don't have the next paycheck? You don't have enough to pay for your house, for your housing. You don't have enough to pay for your food. And there's sometimes families that end up together in their cars living homeless because they're waiting for the next paycheck.
Yeah, I saw a study that was done, I think it was a year or two ago, that said, I think in California, the people that they polled, 85% of them had said in one way or another they had suffered from wage theft, either being cheated out of overtime, being forced to work off the clock, forced to work through breaks, that kind of stuff. And you go, 85%. If ever a group of workers ever needed representation, ever needed a union, it's the fast food industry, not just in California, but across the country. Seems pretty obvious to me.
Yeah, honestly. And then in addition to the wage theft of the breaks, there's this undertone that it's forgotten. We forget that standing up for long terms can have severe consequences in the cardiovascular system. Myself, I recently graduated as a microbiologist, so I have a little bit of sense of some biology, and I can see them in some of my peers. These are people who are working 2 jobs, and sometimes they don't even give them their 10-minute break. So they're working the 7 hours, they got 30-minute break, they go to the second job, and sometimes they don't even get the 30-minute break, standing up those full hours. And most of them, by the time that they get to 50, they have a lot of problems in their legs, a lot of problems with their veins. And this is not something that I will say just 1 out of 10 people. No. Sometimes it's 8 out of 10 people.
Wow. So let me ask you this. You're going to be a microbiologist, and good on you. Fabulous. My conservative friends would say, well, that's what these beginner jobs are supposed to be. They're not supposed to be a living. You're proving their point. You've gone on. You've made your life better. You're going to go live a better life. Leave that nonsense behind you, Sandro.
You know how I got here? I got here based on the sweat of my mom and my dad, who also work in fast food restaurants. So I was lucky to have a support system that was able to help me. I was lucky to actually have put the effort into school and understood at a young age the value of education. But what happens with many of my peers that were in high school who didn't understand the value of it, who didn't have that support system? That my case, it's the exception because I had that support system. But when you don't have that support system, it's nearly impossible to move up the ladder.
That's a much better answer than I was thinking of, which is, simply I want to leave something better behind for the next me to come along and take advantage of to make their lives better. So that when you touch something, you make it better as you go forward. But your answer much better.
No, honestly, that's part of the reason too. That's part of the reason that I haven't moved on in my career and I haven't ascended. Because a person who has education, who had the privilege to know a little bit better, you wouldn't think that the atrocities, the horrors that I have seen in the fast food restaurant will be happening in 2022. You wouldn't think that people will be scared of drinking water because they don't want to go to the restroom in environments where they're like literally next to an oven, suffering from heat stress. As a person that can detect like the first signs of like dehydration when your eyes are sinking in, the change of color, I tell them, drink some water. Oh, no, because management is going to think that I'm a bad worker. People are using carcinogenics to clean tables, not even knowing what a carcinogenic is. So in my mind, in my moral compass, I cannot move on knowing that all of this is going on and knowing that one day I will have a child. And I'm not going to be rich enough to tell him, you know what, I can support you for the rest of your life. And they will go to fast food restaurants. And I don't want to have the fear that knowing that my child will go through that because, that will break my heart.
Breaking my heart, to be honest with you, because you're right. And so the last question I've got for you then, Sandro, is how do we help? How do we make sure that this becomes a reality and we make these jobs good jobs, we make these jobs living wage jobs, and we make them safe jobs? How do we do this?
Primarily by supporting AB 257. When it passes, that is going to pass, and it's in the governor's office, give him a gentle call, a gentle reminder to stand with the workers. When you go to a fast food restaurant, look at the hands of the workers. See how many of their joints you see them swollen due to arthritis. And think of yourself, do I want to support this business or do I want to support the worker? Because, at the end of the day, it's a question of ourselves as a community. Are we okay with the standard that we're setting, or do we need to stand a higher standard?
There you go. Sandro Flores, I appreciate the time. Keep up the amazing work. I hope you'll come back and share some more thoughts on this when this passes and gets signed into law and we begin changing lives. And maybe we see this spread like wildfire across the country.
That's my hope. Thank you so much.
Good stuff, Sandro. Appreciate the time. If you want to check out the website, fastfoodjusticeaurora.com, we'll get links out on social media. I can take a look at that. Going to take a quick break. Right back with your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. This is The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1839. That was the day that the Amistad sailed into Long Island, New York. The Amistad served as a Spanish slave ship. 53 captives, led by an enslaved rice farmer by the name of Joseph Sink, had revolted against their captors and taken control of the ship. They came from what is now Sierra Leone, Africa. They had endured the brutal Middle Passage on a Portuguese slave ship, the Tacora. They had landed in Havana, Cuba, where they were transferred to the Amistad. From there, they were supposed to sail to a Cuban sugar plantation. The transaction was illegal. Most of the major slave destinations in North and South America had outlawed bringing in newly enslaved people. But since existing slave labor was still used in these areas, the illegal slave trade continued. On July 2nd, the African captives escaped their chains and set upon their captors before they could load their guns. They killed the ship's captain. The Africans demanded to be returned to Sierra Leone. The U.S. Navy intercepted the Amistad as it sailed up the U.S. coast. The Africans were thrown into prison and charged with murder. The case garnered national attention and made it all the way to the United States Supreme Court. Former President John Quincy Adams presented the defense for the accused. The court found in favor of the Africans. 35 were returned home. The others had died while incarcerated or at sea. The Amistad became the subject of a 1997 film by Steven Spielberg. And while the Amistad became famous, it was not the only one. Similar uprisings were attempted on hundreds of slave ships during this era. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
So I got to tell you, if there's anything positive that has come out of our Supreme Court overturning the Roe decision, I'm learning a lot more about medicine. I'm learning a lot more about women's bodies. Probably a lot of things I didn't want to know. We had 3 kids, and I never knew what an ectopic pregnancy was, or can't even say it. I didn't know what it was. Didn't even know it existed, because we had 3 very healthy children. Been very fortunate. I knock on everything every day that things went smoothly. We had excellent health care, excellent people who did their jobs. It was, from my perspective, it was quite easy. My wife will give you a different take on this, but our kids are very healthy. We're learning new things now. For instance, I today learned that there's something called Acrania. And I go, oh, well, wonder what that is. That's evidently, while in the gestation process, the fetus forms in the womb without a head, without a skull, without the whole thing, the cranium, and it's fatal. As soon as the child's born, no head, kind of hard to survive. Which is why the story coming out of Louisiana is so important. This woman has come forward. Her name's Nancy Davis. She has come forward and she said, look, this should never happen to anyone, because doctors in that state refuse to perform an abortion because they're scared blankless over what the state is going to do to them forcing this woman to go forward with this child. And with this fetus that is not viable, not going to happen, is going to be born and is going to die immediately, and you're going to put this woman through this trauma. She's saying, look, this is something that should never happen. This should never happen to any mother, should never happen to any woman, and it's wrong. And look, I absolutely agree. Now, these stories that we keep hearing, they keep popping up, and they're going to keep getting worse and worse and worse and more frequent, which is why, Democrats actually stand a chance in November, because Republicans did what they said they were going to do. They did. Now, they didn't tell all the voters they were going to overturn abortion. They just said, we're just going to make it harder. But secretly, they said, no, we're going to, for everybody, nothing, ever. And you now look at the number of crazy people who are coming out saying, under no circumstances, no rape, no incest, no life of the mother, none of this. And they're doing it. And this is going to give people on the Democratic side a chance. And this is where they have to come out and be the party of the working class, the party of the working poor. Because understand, and I come back to, if Miss Davis were a rich woman, there'd be no question. She'd have gotten the care that she needed, without question. But if you're a poor working class woman, you got problems right now. And this is where, and we're seeing it. We saw the registration and the voting turnout in Kansas through the roof. Here in Pennsylvania, women are outpacing men registering to vote. All across the country, we're starting to see, these stories are popping up. And this is going to give Democrats a shot. Now, you got to have the right policies. Got to be on the right side of history. Got to be on the right side of the issue. And part of it is the abortion issue, but the other part of it's the working class issue. And this is where, I reach out to Gavin Newsom and say, look, Governor, you got to sign this piece of legislation. You got to give workers the ability to work hard. Yes, play by the rules, absolutely, but get ahead. Those three go together. You take one out, the whole thing falls apart, and we end up where we are. The fact that there are people who work 40 hours a week in this country and are homeless is criminal. You go, but whoa, they're just irresponsible. No. Have you ever seen those politicians who try to live on minimum wage for a week and can't do it for a week? Or can't do it for a month? Imagine that being your reality. Imagine that being every week. And I've always ripped on those people for, we took the minimum wage challenge and we did it for a month. Oh, good on you. How about doing it for a year? How about doing it for 10 years? How about that being your reality? I'll bet you'd change your mind on a lot of issues if it were. And this is where I come back to this idea of lifting industries and why this AB 257 is so important. Because you're going to start in the fast food industry. Some 550,000 employees in California going to have the opportunity to raise their conditions, to raise the standard for across the board. So everyone is going to be competing on the right issues, which is who can provide the best service, the best product, the best, that kind of stuff. Not on who's cheating their workers the most, not on who's paying the lowest wages, but on the right things. For me, that's the important part. And here's the thing. When this passes and starts to work, other industries, and this is why corporate America is so losing their mind, because they know once it works there, other industries are going to go, hey, what about us? This could be a new direction for the country in building true worker power and getting people to the ballot box. Listen up, Democrats. I'm talking to you.
Small green plants line the bed of what used to be a frontier lake between Switzerland and France. It's existed for 12,000 years, but now it's relegated to just a small stream.
More than half of Europe mired in worst drought in centuries. Climate change action is way more popular than Americans realize. Plus,
a country famed for its oil resources committed to going to sustainable mobility.
Saudi Arabia pushes to become a global electric vehicle leader.
Really?
Yes.
All of those stories and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
There is no climate crisis. It is a hoax, and fossil fuels are a wonderful thing.
It is 2022, and that is Virginia Congressman Bob Good. Hey, Virginia voters, it's 2022. Can you please vote that guy the hell out of office? This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, from heat and drought in the U.S. to heat and drought in China. Now we're back to heat and drought in Europe.
Yes, unfortunately, more than half of Europe is mired in drought. According to a new report from the European Commission, 64% of the continent is in severe or exceptional drought, the highest category, and it is the worst drought in at least 500 years, and likely more. The combination of record heat and drought has triggered water shortages across Europe and is contributing to a widespread increase in fire danger across the EU. Drought, heat, and fires are all worsened by man-made climate change.
Yep, they are.
Here in the U.S., new projections from NOAA hold a warning for coastal communities that are seeing flooding on sunny days at high tide.
You mean like Florida?
Yes.
Then I'm sure they'll ignore it.
NOAA's latest outlook predicts that sunny day flooding, which today occurs on average nationally about once every 2 months or so at any given spot, could hit as frequently as every other day by 2050. That's within the lifetime of a traditional 30-year mortgage originating today. New Jersey is crafting new regulations to restrict development in coastal flood zones based on future climate projections, not past flood data.
Good.
By 2150, sea levels in Jersey are projected to be 5 to 19 feet higher than today.
Don't tell Florida.
A disturbing new study finds that living near natural gas fracking wells increases the risk of childhood leukemia. Researchers at Yale School of Public Health found that children in Pennsylvania who grew up roughly within a mile of a fracking well are twice as likely as other young people to develop juvenile leukemia. But some good news. New modeling shows that Democrats' newly enacted landmark climate bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, will not only save consumers money and lower energy costs, but will also deliver massive benefits and cost savings for public health. By reducing fossil fuel air pollution, the law will prevent up to 4,500 premature deaths every year by 2030 and hundreds of thousands of asthma attacks, with the biggest gains in communities of color that are disproportionately burdened by industrial pollution.
Well, that is good news.
In other news, a new survey finds that climate action is far more popular than people in the U.S. realize.
Is it?
2/3 of Americans support government climate action, but everyone is underestimating how much other people support climate policies, incorrectly believing that their neighbors don't support action. The researchers found this false perception occurs across all states and demographic groups. Even Democrats don't know that climate policy is very popular.
And why don't Democrats even know that?
The researchers at Boston College partially link it to decades of right-wing media demonizing climate policy.
Go figure.
And it matters because when people assume something isn't popular, they don't talk about it, leading to what the researchers called, quote, a spiral of silence that helps obscure the deep, widespread support for climate protection measures across the board.
Of course, they don't talk about it. They think others don't agree with them, and they're afraid to speak up about it.
Finally, big moves in electric vehicles. Saudi Arabia has launched a major initiative to become a big player in the global electric vehicle sector, investing billions to develop a domestic minerals mining industry and an EV manufacturing and processing supply chain for batteries and cars. Bloomberg News reports that the petro-state hopes other countries will swap out their dependence on Saudi oil for dependence on Saudi battery materials, a sector that China currently dominates.
Chalk me up as dubious. For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. Find, follow, and share us planet-wide on the Facebooks and the Twitters at Green News Report. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
Are you tired of think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
Got an email from Tom from Waukesha, Wisconsin. Sent me an email kind of taking me to task on something I said yesterday on the program. He writes, tuned in last night to hear you blanking, dumping on the forward party, not having a position on student handouts. I guess he's against the idea of helping folks with debt. I said, you read a tweet, but never bothered to state your position. Seems hypocritical, he says, to point out them not having a position while you don't have a position either. I won't hold my breath for a response. You don't have to hold your breath. I always respond, especially the people who disagree with me. If you want to email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I do respond to all emails personally. And I said yesterday, hey, where is the forward party on the student debt crisis? They had nothing. They did put out a poll that said, "Hey, what are you in favor of on the voting front? How do you fix our system? Would you do term limits? Would you do nonpartisan primaries? Would you do campaign finance reform? Would you do ranked choice voting?" And I said, "Look, campaign finance reform without a doubt." But it got me thinking about ranked choice voting, and it reminded me, hey, I met somebody at Netroots Nation that we could get on the program to talk about, because I don't think we know just enough. So thank you, Forward Party, for bringing this up. So there you go, Tom. That's what we're going to talk about, and that's why I have asked Vinay Orakandi to come talk with us. He's an attorney, political strategist, and union organizer, and someone we met at the Netroots Nation. Vinay, thanks for taking time for us.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
So I look at this mysterious thing that so many people talk about that we don't do here in this country very often, a couple of places, but we're kind of afraid of. So I thought, hey, this would be a great opportunity to explain what is ranked choice voting. Give us the 30-second explainer.
Okay. So first, it's nothing to be afraid of. I'm from Australia. We've had it for 100 years. And the country's actually pretty stable. It's going well. So the 30-second version is that when you go to vote, right now you just have to go and pick one candidate, and that's it, right? You pick one candidate and you leave. But I'm sure that there's been candidates you like, some you like more than others. Some sometimes it's been agonizing to choose between two candidates or even three candidates. So what ranked choice voting is instead of going and picking just one candidate, you go into the booth and say, okay, this is my top, this is my second, this is my third, so forth. You can rank as many as you like, right? You can rank all of them if you want. You can rank two of them if you want, or you can even just put one. But ideally, you'd go in and just put as many as you like. And that way, if your top candidate doesn't win, then your second candidate might win. And if your second doesn't win, it goes to your third and so forth, like that.
And what's the definition of winning then? Because, there are you got three people in a race, one person gets 34%, they win. So what's the difference? You got to get 50% plus one. What's the definition?
Yeah, so it's still the same as before, is that if someone gets 50% of the vote, let's say you've got three candidates to the race, right? 50%, someone gets 50% straight away, they win. End of story. But let's say it's a tight race, right? Everyone's kind of hovering around 30, let's say you've got, 34, 32, 33, around there, okay? So what would happen is that the rankings come into play, okay? So let's say you get candidates at 34, 33, and 32%. I think that adds up to...
It's close enough. It's close enough. Go.
Close enough. All right. So whoever got 31 okay, they're not, they haven't got enough of the number one, so they'll get knocked out, right? And then their twos, whoever their voters put as number two, get redistributed. It goes back. They become, so for example, let's say number three, whoever those people voted as number two, the votes will go to the number twos. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that would end up determining who, and because it's quite a close between one and the other two candidates, that third candidate's, the rankings of the third candidate would end up shaping who wins.
And the reason I like that is it gives you the opportunity to vote your conscience. Like I would love to see a Labor Party. I'm a Labor guy. I'd love to see a Labor Party. I'd love to vote for a Labor candidate. But in our winner-take-all system where you've got Democrats and Republicans who dominate the field, a third-party vote just takes away from either side. And that could be the difference in winning or losing, as we've seen in a couple of elections, whether you agree or you don't agree with Ralph Nader or the guy with the big ears from '92, Ross Perot. There are moments where this has kind of thrown elections into weird places. And I think by being able to have this ranked choice voting, it could make elections more interesting and get more people involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like in Australia, we never get told this thing that I've heard many times since I've got here, which is like, don't waste your vote, or you're playing spoiler. And like, that seems pretty anti-democratic to me. So like here, the difference simply is ranked choice voting, because in a ranked choice voting system, you can't actually waste your vote. You can't play spoiler because you essentially can account for your full range of your choices.
Yeah, you could do like they did in Florida and just find a guy whose name's similar to the other guy to pull votes away from him. Little dirty tricks like that. This could possibly, change that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this would, in situations like this, what you've also noticed is that you don't get systems where, well, I guess the dirty tricks also get reduced in a ranked choice system as well. So what has often happens is that candidates will recommend to their voters, to their supporters, say, look, vote for me number one, but vote two for this candidate or that candidate. And what you'll have is this complex system of negotiations where candidates are negotiating with each other to say, okay, to recommend to their supporters to vote, to rank in this order. And what happens is that because of that, people, the tone of politics goes down, the dirty tricks goes down. Why? Because even if you want to beat the other candidate, but you want their supporters to rank you, right? So overall, the polarization goes down, the dirty tricks goes down. Like, politics is still contentious in Australia, don't get me wrong, from the voters from the other side. So overall, politics just gets better because of the system.
Yeah, because I know so many people who they're all corrupt. No, the things are rigged. I mean, that seems to be the narrative of a lot of people that I know, and I'm like, no, you gotta vote. Everyone has to. I think this is something that could make it a little bit more interesting and give people the ability to not only vote for different candidates, but also maybe run as candidates and open up the field to other folks. Like I know I've got a lot of Green friends who they can't get on ballots anywhere, and you go, I would like them to have an opportunity to be able to be heard, if nothing else. Not that they're going to win elections, but at least be heard and have the chance to have their supporters be heard.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really think this is how we change American democracy. Right? I know it's a big statement. I know there's a lot of ways we can fix American democracy, but this has got momentum. This is doable. This is how you get more voices into play. And, if you're a major party and you're worried about people getting cynical about democracy, understandably, as is happening, and just not showing up to vote, this is how they show up to vote, right? People who have given up on democracy normally will actually say, okay, well, even if I don't like those bigger parties, for example, then I can go and vote for my party, but then still rank that bigger party. So larger parties, this is a way of actually ensuring turnout as well, and they collect votes down the line.
Are there many places doing it? I know there are some, but I don't know that there are a lot. What percentage, where are we in this country with using this system?
Yeah, so San Francisco has had it for 20 years, believe it or not. New York City just adopted it, they've just had their first ever ranked choice election. Maine and Alaska in the last couple of years do it statewide. Maine even uses it for their presidential elections, believe it or not. And there's about 50 other cities that do it as well. There's quite a few ballot measures happening this year. There's about 8 and a lot of local options bills. So a local options bill is where a state passes a law saying your city can adopt ranked choice voting if they want to, right? So we're expecting this to be a fight city by city, right? And I think that's a good way to do it, because people need to get used to the system and get comfortable with it and say, no, it's not rigged. It's actually a really good way of expressing your voice democratically. So that's what we're expecting, is that there's going to be there is a big wave of cities and states looking into adopting it on that city level and moving upwards from there. Ideally, from my perspective, you'd be doing it for every election, presidential level, everything. But let's start, get people familiar with on the city level and move up.
You're listening to the Rick Smith Show with Vinay Orakandi. He's an attorney, political strategist, union organizer. Like I said, someone I met working on this at Netroots Nation. If someone wanted to get more information about ranked choice voting, where would be a good place to go?
Yeah, I'd recommend probably the best resource on ranked choice voting is fairvote.org, FAIRVOTE.org. There's a lot of information about ranked choice voting. Were really useful.
We'll get links out on social media on how folks can take a look at that website. Now, I as a union organizer, I wanted to get some of your thoughts also, because for me it's about building worker power, and the vote is the most important tool I believe that workers have, whether to vote for a union in their workplace or to vote for candidates who are going to support their rights on the job. And we just talked about what's going on out in California with AB 257 and the ability to maybe lift up the entire fast food industry and make that a living wage job. Let me ask you, you're from Australia. What are working conditions like in the fast food industry there in Australia? How do those workers fare compared to folks here in our country?
So since I've actually come here, the minimum wage has gone up again. In July 2022, it went up to $21.38.
In Australia, not here, because the minimum wage hasn't raised in 13 years here.
Yes.
So I know you're not talking about here.
Yeah. So things are pretty. Things are good. Things are good there.
So it's over $21 an hour of the minimum wage.
Mm-hmm.
What do you pay, like $60 for a hamburger?
No. Like I guess it's not any more expensive, really. Like it depends. I mean, some cities are expensive, but that's just because it's the city. But this is the national minimum wage, and there are places that you can live cheaply. Lots of places. It's not like the cost of living has gone up significantly across the country. There is no correlation, as far as I'm aware.
See, but we're told here that if you raise the minimum wage, it's gonna kill everybody, and it's the end of humanity, and the sky will fall, and little children will cry, and puppies will die. It'll be horrible if we did anything like that.
No, it's just, no, we understand, like Australia is kind of a more naturally egalitarian country, and we understand on some level that there shouldn't be this gigantic gap between the bosses and the workers, right? I mean, there's still a significant gap, but nothing like here. Let's be clear. These arguments are a way of maintaining the boss's power. Like that's all it is. And the psychology of it has worked for so long. I don't think it's going to keep working here. I think there's an awakening happening in this country right now that those kind of arguments are ridiculous, right? But I think in Australia, I think people know, and they would stand for it. People would just not stand for it there. And I hope that we get to that point here as well.
Yeah, I would like us to return to a day when we don't stand for it anymore. But we still have the F channel. Do you have the F channel in Australia and crazy people like that? Or are your people smarter than that to fall for Fox News and the OANs and the Newsmaxes and all the crazy right-wing media that we've got here?
Well, where Rupert Murdoch is from, of course, right? Yeah.
But he's not there anymore. He's here.
True, but he's actually gone back, and he has Sky News, which is kind of like our Fox. So it's not as pervasive, but there is still a significant right-wing media presence there.
So the U.S. is kind of your cautionary tale then.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, the rule is that Australia tends to, whatever America does, Australia does 10 years later in kind of a milder form. Now that time gap is reducing. And also Australians are not looking to America quite as much. They're looking and saying, oh, wow, okay, that's bad. So I don't think it's, there is some pushback against just following America blindly.
Well, good, because I'm worried. I'm going in 9 years, you're going to be attacking your capital and people are going to be defecating on your floor. I sure hope not.
I hope not as well.
I sure hope you're better than that. So let me ask you, because because I see a correlation between workers being able to earn a decent wage, having a voice on the job, and having the ability to cast a ballot free in fair elections. I see this moment where talking about what you're talking about with ranked choice voting, seeing what we're seeing out in California with this legislation that could create sectorial bargaining in the fast food industry. I see this kind of rising of worker power that I've been begging for years, but finally maybe we're going to see.
Yeah, I am hopeful. I'm very, very hopeful. So just so you know, I arrived at the weirdest possible moment in this country. I arrived in late 2019, just before the pandemic and the 2020 election. It was just crazy. And everything has looked like it's gone downhill until the last year. Seeing what, the Amazon union is doing, what the Starbucks union is doing, the wave of unionization that's taking place. It's the most hopeful story coming out of America by far. And people are noticing around the world, right? So I can say that, and between that and the wave of cities adopting ranked choice voting, I'm confident that this country, believe it or not, is on the right track. It seems nuts, and it seems like everything is going to hell sometimes here, but these are the stories that are giving me hope, and I think everyone, I hope, will stay optimistic, because ultimately things are trending the right way.
No, I'm right there with you. I'm guardedly optimistic for the future, because I see young people with their heads screwed on right and moving in the right direction, moving forward. And I think that's a great thing. But Vinay, I appreciate you sharing some thoughts with us. I hope you'll come back and give us some more information as we move down the road, because I'd love to see this. I'd love to see this ranked choice voting take off and be something that we all have the opportunity to partake in.
It's happening. It's happening. I'd love to be back and share more with you.
Good stuff. Appreciate the time, Vinay. Vinay Oraconde. Make sure you check out the website that we talked about, fairvote.org. We'll get links out on social media. How you can take a look at that. Can take a quick break. Right back. 1-866-416-RICK. 1-866-416-7425. Back after this. If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our labor history in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. Generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
Interesting Reuters story just came out for our folks who live in Pennsylvania. And for people across the country, I think understanding who is running for governor in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. This Doug Mastriano, a career military guy, spent time as a instructor at the Army War College. A photograph of him has been unearthed in a faculty spread. And there he is in all his glory with a big cheesy grin in a Confederate uniform. Now, look, there's a bunch of people with strange outfits on. But, the idea, I guess, was to have people come and, dress as a historical figure, someone military, and there he is in his Confederate outfit. Now the picture has another guy that I'm probably just as concerned about. There's a guy in a trench coat with sunglasses. Kind of worried about that guy in a huge way. But you've got the Confederate uniform wearing Benito Mastriano there. And as I tweeted out today, I'm surprised it's not a Nazi uniform. Now you go, this should sink him. This is going to take him down. No, I'm sorry, my lefty friends. It's not. If anything, this is going to make him stronger. This is going to get more support from his base than ever before. Understand, read the room. Central Pennsylvania. Look, I moved to Central Pennsylvania back in 2005, end of 2004, early 2005. And the first 5 people I met were all Confederate flag tattooed wearing folks who were still fighting the Civil War, and they weren't on the side of the Union. This is an area where Confederate flags are flying in a lot of places. In fact, the guy who used to live behind me, fortunately, he has moved on. He had one of the big blue X's on his flagpole. That led to an interesting conversation. Maybe someday when I'm not on terrestrial radio, I will share that conversation, maybe in a podcast down the road. But this in the center of the state where Mastriano's support is going to, this is going to be a good thing for him. And there's part of me goes, I got to wonder if he didn't leak it himself because he needs the boost. Look, these folks on the right, they understand gamesmanship. They understand how to rile the base. They understand how to get people all worked up. And more than anything, they understand how to play the victim. And in this, he's going to eventually try and play the victim because, the War College took down the photo because the Army has said we're not going to allow any Confederate stuff. Which you go, help me here? Why would you have in the first place? It makes no sense. Well, it's our heritage. No. That was the enemy. They were traitors. That was treason. You don't celebrate that. And finally, they've awakened to the reality that maybe this is a bad idea. So the War College, from what has been reported by Reuters, removed all Confederate stuff except for this one picture that just slipped by them. Just slipped right on by. They have now taken it down, and this is what will, I assume, tomorrow, and I'm waiting for the email as we speak, saying, hey, I've been censored by the War College, send me money. Because that's how the victimization on the right makes things right, by begging for money. I've been aggrieved, send me money. They broke into my house because I stole, classified documents, send me money. That's how this goes. And sadly, the flock on the right continues to be fleeced. And they're okay with it. And you know what? I'm okay with it too. Because that's their right. It's their right to be fleeced. My hope is at some point in the very near future, and I keep saying this, the hope is they wake up and realize they've been had. They done been had. So I'm curious. Going to help him? He's a handful of points behind Josh Shapiro here in this gubernatorial race. The Senate race here, depending on which poll you're looking at, is either a blowout or tightening. The Republicans are spending more money in this state to get both of the two into those positions, which I'll tell you would be bad. Would be bad for the country, not just for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, but for the entire country, because it sends the wrong message. Again, the hope is that people get out and vote come November, and look at this stuff, and look at the cheesy grin of him wearing his Confederate costume. Frightening. Love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you miss any portion of the program, make sure you download the podcast. Wherever you get yours, you'll find ours, from iTunes to iHeart, Stitcher to Podbean, everywhere in between. There we are. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1839. That was the day that the Amistad sailed into Long Island, New York. The Amistad served as a Spanish slave ship. 53 captives, led by an enslaved rice farmer by the name of Joseph Singh, had revolted against their captors and taken control of the ship. They came from what is now Sierra Leone, Africa. They had endured the brutal Middle Passage on a Portuguese slave ship, the Tacora. They had landed in Havana, Cuba, where they were transferred to the Amistad. From there, they were supposed to sail to a Cuban sugar plantation. The transaction was illegal. Most of the major slave destinations in North and South America had outlawed bringing in newly enslaved people. But since existing slave labor was still used in these areas, the illegal slave trade continued. On July 2nd, the African captives escaped their chains and set upon their captors before they could load their guns. They killed the ship's captain. The Africans demanded to be returned to Sierra Leone. The U.S. Navy intercepted the Amistad as it sailed up the U.S. coast. The Africans were thrown into prison and charged with murder. The case garnered national attention and made it all the way to the United States Supreme Court. Former President John Quincy Adams presented the defense for the accused. The court found in favor of the African. 35 were returned home. The others had died while incarcerated or at sea. The Amistad became the subject of a 1997 film by Steven Spielberg. And while the Amistad became famous, it was not the only one. Similar uprisings were attempted on hundreds of slave ships during this era. Labor History is brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and the Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryhistory.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitter at Labor History 2.
The Old Home Place is a classic theme of Americana, expressed in everything from Norman Rockwell paintings to Woody Guthrie's powerful folk lament, Ain't Got No Home in This World Anymore. But for a heart-rending modern-day version of the emotional pull of home, you can't beat the poignant wail of a new song entitled The Low-Down Down Home Atherton Rich Man Blues. Warning, you might need a box of tissues to get through this sad saga. Atherton, California, is a small town of some 7,500 souls who face a dreadful housing crisis. Unlike most situations, though, they are alarmed by a looming threat of too much housing. It seems that a recent California law requires cities to provide some affordable multifamily housing to help cope with a growing statewide shortage of homes, meaning Atherton needs to put in about 350 townhouse units as its share. Townhouses shriek the locals. This can't be. Unrich people live in townhouses. You see, Atherton is a precious enclave in the heart of the Silicon Valley, where only tech billionaires are allowed. The price of their mansions averages $8 million, with each one secluded on at least an acre of land. So townhouse people? No way. As one affordable housing advocate put it, Atherton talks about multifamily housing as if it were a Martian invasion. In a letter to the City Council, the multi-billionaire Andreessen family wailed that allowing more than one resident per acre, quote, will massively decrease our home values and quality of life. I'm sure you weep for them, so grab a tissue. Yet, some Athertonians are at least trying to find solutions. One suggests that all of the residents' swimming pool cabanas should count toward the town's affordable housing requirements. This is Chum Hightower saying, if that won't make you cry, nothing.
He had over 300. I'm still trying to figure it out. Anyway, here to share some thoughts on the affidavit release and, well, whatever else we can bang around. I've asked our good friend, former Ohio Congressman and political analyst Bob Ney to come share some thoughts. Bob, thanks for taking time for us.
Thanks, Rick. Well, 30 months for falsification of one piece of paper for me. So, you know?
So you look at this and you go, how's this guy still walking around?
Yeah, I had a falsification of a federal document, which was actually not a federal, it was an internal congressional document, but it was one page, and that was 30 months. So, I don't know. That wasn't a whole box of things, but it was enough.
Yeah, he had 700 pages. 700 pages of stuff. So let's do the math. You know, that's a lot of years. That's a lot of months right there, added up to a lot of years.
I think one of the big details out of this, of the redacted, material here, was I thought this was fascinating, how the referral started in February. It was from the National Archives in February, and that's in there. So I thought that was about how the Department of Justice got involved in the first place. So DOJ wasn't just going in and saying, let's take a look at this.
Right.
They had a referral, and this is in there, the criminal referral from the National Archives, which was sent to justice on February the 9th. In fact, of course, then that's going to be, as you know, because the wheels of government do not turn fast, that's going to be like, well, why did they sit from February the 9th? That's going to be debated. Why 92 days, quote, before the election? So you'll hear that from the other end. But I thought that was just very interesting how that began.
The way I took it is they were really trying to give him every opportunity to go, okay, here, have it back. You caught me, and to give the stuff back. Yet, as you go through this, what we're finding out is not only did they keep repeatedly asking and negotiating, that he was actually denying having this stuff.
Well, and the lawyers went and met. That's where I'm saying when you look at the February 9th criminal referral, not inquiry, not an inquiry from archives, criminal referral from archives, you would sit and say, well, why did they wait? Because that's what will be said. Why did they wait till February 9th? Well, they waited till February 9th because they were attempting, justice, to go through the system, sit with the lawyers. You got this. We don't know how it got there. Let's talk about it. We want it back, on and on and on. And then they walked away from a meeting, I think in May, if I'm correct, with 15 boxes or so. And then what I think happened after that, and it's not in here, but and it probably involves the archives again. The 15 boxes are gone through, and then somewhere along the line, because stuff doesn't vanish on the cloud or the government cloud or whatever, Rick, somewhere along the line, archives had to have said, okay, we went through these boxes. That was in May. So we got June, July, and within 90 days said, there's some other things not here. Plus, we won't know in the affidavit because they can't release this. There's also names that are contained in there of people, and I'm going to, if I had to bet my car, and I like my car, I would bet that people close to Trump are in there saying, he has this, he has that.
You got to think that there are.
Generated.
And I look at this and you go, why not just give it back other than just because the one thing that is not being asserted by Trump's lawyers or anyone, I guess, outside of the people on Twitter are going, he could declassify anything he wants is there's nobody saying he declassified any of this stuff. There's no one saying that he left an executive order in a drawer somewhere. There's no justification for him having these documents at all. So the argument that, well, the president can see whatever, he's not the president anymore. He is not entitled to this stuff.
The documents, it's very clear through the archive system, are the people's documents. And if presidents want certain copies of digital copies of things, they could have them as long as they're not the nuclear key codes, et cetera. They can have certain things, especially declassified obvious material. Anybody can get that. And then it's sorted through in a process. That's why when people say, well, Obama took them. No, Obama didn't. It went through the process of what goes in the library, what never goes in the library, and what one day can go in the library. That's how that runs. There is a process there. This is the first time somebody has kept something. And again, you have to sit there and look when people say about the declassification, well, he can declassify. He can't verbally do it. Can he declassify? Yes, up to certain things he can't. But most, yes, he can, most. But there's a process you go through. And guess what? It's written. You don't do, hey, verbally, like do the sign of the cross, I absolve you, and it's all declassified. You don't do that. It has to be written. There has to be a process. That didn't happen to the best of our knowledge.
There again, I'm reading through this stuff, and I have no idea why they want this document released. It doesn't make much sense, other than he was on his Truth Social today, going after Obama because Obama must be very proud of this judge who hates him. You know, I'm looking at this going, why would you want this released? This is not good for you. This is laying out in very antiseptic terms exactly what you did. Anybody else, anyone in this country would be not just in the prison, but probably under it at this point.
Well, let me give a spin here in another direction, okay?
All right, hit me.
Let's say I'm doing the PR for the campaign quote, right? Well, here's my spin. Well, of course they didn't release things. The president's deep state enemies' names are in there. They created these ideas. They can't. The government won't release the deep state names. They would love for one name to be released because hypothetically, and I won't throw a name out there, although I would love to release one of the names that I think's in there probably. But if you've got somebody, say, that's a deputy director of the CIA or the NSA or a regional director or whatever, and they knew some things were going down, so, you know, their name's in there. And then you find out that their wife contributed to Barack Obama or Franklin Delano Roosevelt, whoever, you know, years ago. Then you take that and you say, you see? You see, that's who's accusing the president, his enemies. No. That's where I think they would have came from.
That's an excellent point, because I have heard, and I've had numerous people email me and say, you've got it all wrong, Rick. What the president was doing, he was conducting his own investigation. He's going after the people who conducted the Russia hoax. That seems to be, you know, kind of under the surface, that this was kind of a covert op by Trump. This was him, you know, playing Sherlock Holmes.
Well, I think it's more on. I hate to make this so trite, but souvenir collections.
That's my position from the beginning. I said
really?
The exact same thing. Hey, look what I've got.
And you and I have not coordinated this conversation, by the way.
No, I said that from the beginning. I said, I don't understand why you would take this stuff other than knowing how he is. Look what I've got and you don't have it. Being the big man showing off. That's the only thing that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, I got a lot of people
and
who are saying,
you put it on eBay, you know.
That's the scary part, because other people are going, well, maybe, but we fear he's going to sell it to the Saudis for a golf tournament.
Right. So, I mean, you look at this, and there's no logical reason. That's why I said souvenirs. No logical reason, or he feels it's his, you know, that he can have it. Now, this has, you know, gotten to a point now, of course, where they've got all these things, they're logged in, and then somebody's going to have to make the decision of, you know, who did what, when, and why. What was the obstruction issue? I mean, the government builds its case off of this. They had probable cause in the warrants. Now they have a case. So, you know, what's the next move?
So the $1 million question in this, before I move on to the next big thing we got to hit on, does he see the inside of a cell? Does he see the inside of a courtroom?
I think potentially he could see the inside of a courtroom. You know, if something hypothetically happened that, you know, he would be convicted, you can't send, I know he's the president, nobody's above the law, but you just can't send him to, you know, where I went to. I mean, you just can't do it.
House arrest, maybe?
He would have to be, you know.
Maybe block him in the Golden Palace?
House arrest or something, yes.
All right, so you could see that happening?
I mean, you know, I don't know. I've been trying to think this through. Who knows, you know, how things run. I guess I'll throw this out here. A question. Does the Justice Department have the intestinal fortitude if he obstructed justice and they can prove it, et cetera, and he violated the law, will they have the intestinal fortitude to, you know, go after him? And then there could be you know, a plea deal. I'm not saying there isn't. You know, I did one. There could be a plea deal. But will they have the, you know, intestinal fortitude, again, if they've got the proof to say no one's above the law? I don't know. Yeah. I don't know the answer to that.
Because if it's anybody else, we're locked up. It's just that simple.
Believe me.
Yeah.
I mean, well, let's take the example. What was it, Sandy Berger?
Oh yeah, Sandy Berger took
Sandy Berger, stuffed him in his coat and stuff, went out of the archives, and now he didn't do jail time, but he had to plea, didn't he?
Yeah. He lost his security clearance. There was a bunch of stuff that went on.
Right.
And he was, he wasn't, as I remember, not, trying to show them off.
Now, let me also say this. Plea deals are not always necessarily about doing time. I mean, there could be a plea deal where there has to be an admittance by Trump or his lawyers that something wrong was done. And once you do that, you can argue, I did a plea deal, but I'm really not guilty. Once you do a plea deal, you do a plea deal. I don't care what you think. You are technically right out front guilty.
You are officially guilty. It's that simple.
Whether you are, you aren't. You are.
No, you took it. You owned it. It's that simple. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show. We're here with Bob Ney, former Ohio Congressman, political analyst. I got to get your thought on the student loan thing. I think it's a good thing. I think we should be doing more of this on the student debt front. I'm curious your thoughts.
I think that what I've seen on this that's the most disturbing is people say, well, why'd they forgive them? But just because I didn't have a student loan, which I didn't, by the way, I worked full-time at the Imperial Glass Company, and by the way, I've got a caveat to this, which I'm going to defend the student loan. I worked full-time at the Imperial Glass Company. I worked at Cook United Grocery Store, right, 20-some hours a week.
No way.
And what's that?
I worked at a Cook United store as well.
Fisher Costa Fazio owned them.
Yeah.
It was Fazio Foods.
Okay.
Cleveland.
I remember that. Yeah.
I'll be darned. See, great minds work alike.
They were represented by UFCW Local 880.
I was in the union, $1.90.
Yep.
That's way back then. I'm older than you. But that was big money. That was okay. That was good union wage back then.
My grandmother retired from Uncle Bill's. What was a department store there?
I'll be darned. Yeah, I worked Cook United.
There you go.
But here's the point. My tuition at Ohio State for a quarter system at the time was $750. It was $127 a month for my apartment. Now people say, "Wow, Bob." No, wait a minute. I eventually made $3.90 an hour back in 1974. All right? So let's say, okay, minimum wage, let's say it doubled, right? It's $8.55, let's say. Well, the tuition at Ohio State, it didn't double. It went through the ceiling.
Yeah.
Yeah, more. So my point is, you can't compare the day I went. Nobody can work today and pay the tuition. I mean, unless you're, making $120,000 a year and you're a student.
No, and this
you're not going to be able to do it. So I think this is a fair way to try to help, compensate people. The only fear I have of this, and this is so governmental that it makes me scream. The Department of Education has verified they have access to records of the 30 million due to 10 or 20,000, depends on the Pell Grant, or whether you have a regular student loan. They can only, through their computer system, basically account for 8 million. And it may take a long time to get the rest of it going. So I think the White House needs to take its foot and kind of give a little gentle love tap to the Department of Education.
Yeah, I mean,
make it work.
Again, this is one of those moments where you go, maybe we should be investing in technology. Maybe we should be upgrading, our government, our country. Yeah, maybe we should be doing some of those things.
Right. And so, again, I've heard some people say, well, I didn't get my loans paid. Well, okay. I just gave you my example. I didn't get a loan, but again, you actually were able to work and make your way through college and have minor loans when you got out.
No,
that doesn't exist for anyone today.
No, but here, there's people like me who decided I wasn't going to take out numerous student loans and stop going to college, and I ended up, getting a good union job, and I went back to college in my 30s and finished and did all that, but I wasn't going to go into debt. And so, what about me? I hear that all the time too. Well, you know what? As a society, we need educated people. We need folks who are going to do things. This is the investment in the future of the country. And are there some people who you may deem as undeserving? Yeah, there always are. But as a whole, in the aggregate, I think this is a good thing. We should have done more.
I think it's good for some debt relief, and I believe it's good, a good direct way to help some people. I mean, I don't think this is the end of the world. Oh my goodness, we've spent a lot of money in other ways. Now, I don't know how this will be legally challenged because it's questionable of any executive order of any president when it comes to a budgetary situation, which this is.
Yeah.
The president's job in the executive order is not to spell out, here's how we pay for it. The job is to present the executive order for a policy. Now, if the Congress wants to follow back and really do a real budget someday, then they can all sit down and figure this out in the whole scheme of the budget.
Yeah, don't hold your breath.
So well, that's why I said someday. We actually used to do this, Democrats and Republicans together, and actually do a budget, not kind of kick the can down the road. But that's a whole other discussion.
It's a whole other thing. I wanted to get your thoughts real quick on Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn and her. Was it a gaffe? Did she do it on purpose? Did she call Taiwan a country? Is it because she doesn't know? Was it strategic? I'm curious your thought.
I think it's okay. I mean, if the Chinese don't like,
No, I think it's okay. My question is she stupid or did she make a strategic decision?
Oh, she did it on purpose.
Okay.
Look, if I'm Marsha Blackburn in Tennessee, or I'm back in my congressional seat in eastern Ohio, I want China to attack me for calling Taiwan a country. It's like, okay, bring that one on. I think she did it on purpose. Absolutely, because it does defy American policy. But of course, Chinese went after Nancy Pelosi. You won't go over there. Here's the problem the Chinese have. They make a deal about everything. Now there's going to be a lot of copycats. The Pelosi trip, and then there was another congressional trip, and now Marsha Blackburn. There's going to be a lot of people. And now, as a result of Blackburn, probably everybody's going to run over and go, I love this country. Look, I'm here in this country.
Everyone needs a photo op with a Taiwanese citizen.
All right, exactly. And if you really want to freak the Chinese out, say Dalai Lama, then their heads explode.
Bring the Dalai Lama to Taiwan?
Oh, it's over with.
Hold a picture.
That's a good idea. Now we could raise some money off that whole trip.
You got to take it to the next level because it's already you've already got the shock and outrage. You need to take it to that next level.
Oh no, you're gonna unleash the nuclear codes on that one, right?
Finally, I wanted to get your thoughts on the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, the DCCC. They've signed and I guess ratified their first union collective bargaining agreement.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I think it's a good thing. We had Dennis Kucinich and I, and Dennis, of course, and a lot of your listeners do. We had been the only two back in, I don't know, I want to say 2000 some. Dennis and I were the only two to mandate that if you were a campaign worker, you had health care. We bought the plans, and we did that. And we were the only two campaigns, either side of the aisle, that did it. And I was happy, we did that with our campaigns. I thought it was, precedent-setting. We supported unionization on Capitol Hill, the Capitol Hill Police. We had a caveat from them, you don't walk out of the Capitol and let everybody go in unless it's January the 6th. Then the crowd goes in whether you want them to or not. But I think it's a really interesting step. Now, campaigns are temporary, but that's okay. You go in, and then you've got your union. And I just thought it was a pretty cool move.
You don't think it's going to harm?
It'll serve as a model, for what you can do. Just like when Dennis and I did our health care for our campaign workers. Other people say, well, we don't want to spend all that money. Well, we want to talk about health care. We as Congress people had health care. Let's do it. And I think as a union, I think is a good thing.
It's not going to, because the argument that I've heard against it is, well, it's going to hurt the Democrats because they're going to have to follow the rules and Republicans won't.
Oh, well, I don't know about that, but I still think it's good. It's part of it's Teamsters local, right?
Yeah, out of Iowa, actually.
Right. Oh, okay. But I think it's a good thing.
I do too. Good for them.
Really
good on them.
Thing, and it ought to set a tone and set a trend, and we'll see if there's any Republicans that bite on this.
Yeah, no, they can't be. There can't be a Republican today who's going to be.
There used to be, but they're gone.
Yeah, there are no pro-labor Republicans left.
Yeah,
and if they were,
the whole thing of the past.
and this is the part of, even if they, privately, their inclination to say, yeah, I believe in collective bargaining quietly in the cloakroom, if they were to come out, they'd be shunned from the party, I believe.
But I think that it's a good model to set, a good tone to set. And it doesn't matter if the other party does it or not. It's good for them to do it. If you're going to be in the Democratic Party and you're going to support unions, support it all the way, including your own campaigns. That's what, again, I go back to the health care. Some of our consultants said, you can't spend all that money. We had a lot of campaign workers. And if they were on our staff, they got the health care, and we're like, we need to spend that money.
So when you're running for Congress again, we need people like you in Congress.
Well, here's my problem, and this is going to sound so brazen and vain. I had a radio guy in Wheeling call me, and he said, look, I kind of did an informal poll. I think you can win. And I said, that's why I don't want to run. I think I can win. That's why I don't want to run. You never know.
There's part of me that doesn't blame you. But, Bob, as always, great stuff, my friend. Thanks for the time.
Thank you so much.
Our good friend Bob Ney. I'd vote for him in a heartbeat. In fact, I told him before I'd send him his first check. It's a quick break. Right back to wrap things up. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1919. That was the day that Fanny Sellens and Joseph Starzaleski were murdered while standing up for workers' rights. Fanny was born in New Orleans. She married a garment worker in St. Louis. After her husband's death, she became involved in the labor movement in the garment industry in Chicago. The United Mine Workers of America recognized her organizing abilities. As a mine organizer, she worked in the Allegheny Valley in Pennsylvania. Mine operators in the area were known to be strongly opposed to union organizing. Mine managers made open threats against Fanny. Despite these threats, she stayed, and when the miners went on strike, she was there with them on the picket line. 6 weeks into the strike, she was shot and killed by company gunmen. Also murdered was a miner, Joseph Starzaleski. Fanny was just 47 years old. No one was ever convicted for the crimes. The United Mine Workers Journal reported on her death. The article declared 2 fallen picketers had been, quote, shot down in cold blood without provocation and without excuse. The article remembered Fanny as well known throughout all of the region as an angel of mercy among the families of working miners and other laboring men. A disturbing picture of Fanny's bullet-ridden body was taken at the morgue. In the picture, her head is smashed in. That picture was hung up in the union offices across Pennsylvania as a reminder of the cost of the struggle. The United Mine Workers dedicated a memorial to Sellens at her gravesite at Union Cemetery in Arnold, Pennsylvania. It has become an important site for annual Labor Day celebrations. Let us not forget those who came before us so that we may see where we are heading. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2. Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Check out the website, thericksmithshow.com. I got to tell you, Bob Ney, probably one of the smartest guys that I know. Former Republican, seen the light, which gives me hope that at some point, people are going to wake up. He was a Gingrich guy. He was, in that class of 2010 that swept in to do some pretty horrible things, and I've seen the light. And look, fair, honest. This is what we need. This is where we need to return to. This is where maybe we have some hope if we can get more Bob Neys to show up in the Republican Party and look at how we move this country forward. How we help people, how we do the right things. Look, on the union front, I think every worker, no matter what it is that you do, you should be able to join and form a union without repercussion. You should be able to have a say on the job. You should be able to share in the profits of your labor. That's not radical. It's what we used to believe in this country until, one of the parties lost their mind. And as I've been saying, look, right now, Republicans hate working people. It comes out in their policy. It comes out in their rhetoric. Anyway, thanks so much for tuning in. If you missed any portion of the program, make sure you grab the podcast. Wherever you find yours, you'll find ours. You got something on your mind you want me to know? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Thanks for being here. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.